Nobody acknowledge it. I'll say I'm coming from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and all right,
Someone says anything, we'll be like, "You're the only one who's seeing it."
that's right. Yeah.
I don't know what you're talking about.
All
All right.
right, so hello everyone, and welcome to WP Roundtable. As you can see, we've got a very non-serious episode for tonight, and I'm sorry, very serious, very serious. And yeah, I'm Jason Crawford, coming to you from Medellin, Colombia, and I don't even know what else to say about this one.
And I'm Marc Benzakein, coming from Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Hey guys, and I'm Kyle, and I'm coming from Jackson, Michigan. Happy to be here, and we are in for a very serious episode. We're not messing around today. So we've got a great guest, and we're going to learn some amazing things from him. His name's Ian Wilson. He's the co-founder and lead, the creative lead over at Build Create in Ann Arbor, Michigan. Awesome agency. They do amazing stuff and blow a lot of minds and save a lot of lives and a lot of stuff. So Ian, welcome to the program.
Thank you, thank you. Glad to.
We are glad to have you to mark this historic milestone, episode 79.
Oh man, that's a big one.
It is a big one. I've been looking forward to this big milestone for the WP Roundtable. So
The big
all right.
7-9. Wow.
Big 7-9. Yeah, it's crazy that we've come this way.
Yeah.
So, all right.
Most people only make it to 78. So I mean, that's impressive.
Not us, because we've got commitment,
That's right.
The envelope.
and we are serious. So, right off the bat, before we get into some questions, learn about our special guests, we're going to talk about our quick picks of the week. This is where all four of us, are going to share something very special that we want everyone to know about, and it's got to be something interesting and amazing and life-altering in a positive way. So, my quick pick of the week, I've already shared it on the Google Plus event. It is a link to something that isn't new. I don't think I've shared it as a quick pick before, but it's the WordPress swag store. It's totally the bomb. HelloMerch.com/collection/WordPress. Check it out. You can find some awesome swag there related to WordPress stuff. This year, we used some of our budget surplus for WordCamp Ann Arbor to buy some of this stuff and give it away as door prizes to attendees. It was totally a hit, and I actually snuck some of it away for myself because I just got a new iPhone, and now I've got this killer WordPress iPhone case. Is that not the bomb? You want one of these? I just told you where to go get it. So that's it. Thanks.
My
Okay.
pick of the week,
Oh, go for it.
I think, is I don't think I've used it before, is iThoughts X. And so I really like the bubbles and all the stuff I can do to keep my thoughts organized, because my thoughts aren't always very well organized. And I've already thrown a link in the Hangout page as well.
And my pick of the week is WordCamp Orlando. I am going to be there this weekend. I cannot wait. They've got like a whole like Harry Potter-like theme going. I guess they really didn't have the licensing for Harry Potter because Harry Potter is not open source. So they're going with like this whole like Harry Potter-like theme. I had suggested they make a character called Harry Presser, but somebody said that that could be taken like many different ways and didn't sound, really good when you think about it. So anyway, WordCamp Orlando is going on this weekend. I am flying down on Thursday. It's going to be a rip-roaring good time.
That's sweet. Ian, do you have something to share?
Well, let's see. Mostly NyQuil this week. That makes me happy.
Tell us more.
Yeah. Straight off a flight into upper respiratory infection, always good times. But in terms of, I guess, Search WP is a really awesome WordPress search plugin. SearchWP.com. If you Google it, you can find it. We'll post a link. But it makes searching all of your content, indexes PDFs, and searches all your taxonomies and custom fields like all in one go. And I kind of discovered it, and it saved my life on this project I'm working on, so it makes me really happy.
That's legit, man. Search WP is the bomb.
That's awesome. We use it on our site. It's awesome.
It seriously saved my life.
Yeah.
I told him so.
Wow. That's pretty cool. Life-saving plugins. You heard it here in WP Roundtable. All right, so let's learn a little bit more about Mr. Ian Wilson, if we can. We got a whole lot of questions we want to get through, and the world wants to know more about you. So Here we
All
go. Could you take us back to when you were a wee little person living wherever you lived when you were a young fellow? What were you doing, and what did you want to do? What did you just like go to bed dreaming about at night? One day, I'm gonna be Ian Wilson.
Well, when I was a teacup human, I wrote this story about owning a Jeep with a hang glider on it. So pretty much hang gliding on a Jeep was a big aspiration I had. Um, Other than that, mostly playing video games and climbing trees. That's pretty much as far as I got. Um, yeah, but still, the hang gliding Jeep is still kind of on my bucket list.
Hmm. Awesome. So you were pretty good as a child at predicting, your future course, obviously. So where did your academic career take you?
Well, see, after my brother graduated high school, my parents decided that they really didn't want me to be like him, so they pulled me out of school and homeschooled me from 5th grade onward. And when I was like 15, they were like, okay, well, you can be done if you want and go to community college. And so I did that. And then they found out that I didn't have a diploma, so I had to take a GED. And then I went to, well, I was going to be a musician. Then I found there was too much math involved, and I was going to be an English major. And then I found out that liberal arts is not for me. And then I decided I was going to make videos. Then I decided that was too hard of an industry to break into. Then I decided I was going to be a print designer. And then I found that that was also an industry that was too hard to break into. And so then I, BS'd my way into a coding job and learned in Fire. Spent, 8 some years in various colleges trying to find my way.
Now, did it ever occur to you that there's also math involved with hang gliding Jeeps?
I was going to outsource that part, I think.
Good thinking.
Probably like to my robot butler or something if I had the choice.
You got an answer for everything.
Yes, I do.
That's great. So you took this long, winding road. You bounced around like a pinball all over the place trying to figure out your true calling. And you landed in some coding position and found yourself there, and you say learned under fire and figured things out on the job. A lot of us found ourselves pushed beyond where we thought we could go by those high-pressure situations. And I know you've talked a lot about this before. I've heard you tell great stories about the situations you found yourself in and how you got through that. So walk us through a little bit some of those early times where you were getting started in web development.
Yeah, so basically I had built like one WordPress site, and I was like, okay, I can copy and paste these template bits around and everything, and so then I went straight from that into, okay, can you slice this PSD into the templates, and then was like, yeah, sure, I can totally do that, and at this point, I really had like no grasp of PHP. Really had like very little actual understanding of anything I was doing. But I was like, wait, I can totally like put the header HTML in one file and then like include it up here. And I slowly managed to figure it out from there. And I got dumped into Ruby on Rails, and that just about broke my mind when I opened up like the app folder, and there was like controls and models and views and all these configuration files and gems to install, and yeah, it was basically I just jumped straight from the frying pan into the fire, and slowly kind of converted that company to working on WordPress until that all went away and whatnot. But yeah, lots of overconfidence and overpromising, resulting in lots of late hours and lack of sleep.
So at one point in time, you were like doing all this stuff, and then you kind of discovered WordPress, I assume, and decided to do everything in WordPress. Is that how it worked for you, or how'd you end up kind of in that evolution towards WordPress?
It was pretty gradual. The place I started working at it was like back when like rail shops were like the cool hip thing to do in Ann Arbor, and everyone was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna make startups and Rails. You know, it's cool. We got a REST API," and it was like hot in the streets. So my first real Rails coding project was to try to duplicate WordPress or replicate it in Rails, because I was just having a love affair with Ruby at the time. WordPress looked nothing like what we know now. It's like in 2008 when it was like all the links were along the top, and you had that sweet like JavaScript generated header and the default theme and everything. Before it was like really set up to be a CMS, where it was still very much a blogging platform. So I sort of like I did a couple projects in it, and then just kind of worked on other stuff, and then came back to it later, and eventually it just took over my entire life once I realized, like, okay, the community's built up to a point now where it has like so much momentum that there's no point resisting.
So we've got a listener question. Can you confirm or deny whether Rails shops are still cool?
It's a good question. I don't think so, but it depends who you talk to. I don't move in that crowd anymore. Everyone, kind of was like, oh, Rails, man, Django's sweet now, and everyone's working in Python. So I don't know. It was sort of like Coke in the 80s. It was huge, and now it's just sort of like, it's there, it's cool, but...
Okay.
That may be the first drug reference I've ever been a part of on this show.
Oh, okay.
They're going over your head, Mark.
Well, I wasn't around in the 80s, so...
Well, we've got a listener, Ross, who's probably going to have to be making some questioning his career choices and stuff. So, thanks for tuning in, Ross. All right. So, tell us a little bit more. About how things started to evolve. I know things got a little bit interesting as you started to work at some agencies, and you started to get pretty capable at what you were doing, and just walk us through what happened before you started Build Create.
Yeah. So basically, my friend and I'd gotten him a job at the agency we were working at, the Rails one, and slowly he and I sort of took over more and more of like the running of the company and everything, and we just got really adept at putting out horrible fires that other people would start and then be like, oh, we're going to disappear now, and you can, fix the problems we started. And so we got really well-versed in what not to do. And we weren't ready yet to jump off into our own business. We took a lot of prodding from people I'd worked with and other people in the industry to be like, you should stop making money for other people and start making it for yourself, because they're destroying your life. Basically, I think by the time that company imploded, I pretty much settled into doing WordPress like exclusively, and so when the time came to jump ship, that's kind of what I was doing. That's kind of what I sold myself as. And I worked for another agency for a bit while I kind of got my company off the ground. And but it was I like to do both design and development, and so that job was also really primarily primarily coding for a really design-heavy office that didn't really understand what I did, and so it was like, I think a lot of us have been in that position where you're like the one coder and everybody looks at you like you're like magical, but then you're like, when stuff breaks, you're like, why did it break? And you're like, because I'm just a man. I can't control the shifting sands of the internet. And so they look to you for answers, and you're like, I don't have answers, only despair. but it was it was a long journey. I mean, just so many pitfalls and failures, and really thinking that something was going to take off and everything was going to be okay with the first company, and then just having it all come crumbling down. It was really just a testament to the value of building and maintaining relationships, in every aspect of what you do, and not burning bridges, but still, uh, being firm and taking control of what you want to do. It was a long, painful journey, but we made it.
So here's my question. You look back on this, and you had a couple experiences that we talked about. Like you say you went out of the frying pan and into the fire, and went way over your head, made promises that you didn't know how to follow through on, and then you worked at a agency that imploded, as you say, and things kind of got tricky. And so you overcame some adversity and things like that. So to the person out there who may be tuning in, who is in a kind of a challenging position right now, maybe working for an agency that they don't like, or maybe even way over their head technically, talk about some of the things that you look back on and you're like, I'm glad I went through that, or I'm glad I had the opportunity to power through that, because why?
Yeah, it's one of those things where, you really have to look back, and this applies to a lot of experiences in life, but just accept what you went through, and learn everything you can from it, because it's done, and regret doesn't really help anyone, least of all you, because you're the one stuck dealing with the baggage. But learning how to deal with crazy bosses and their crazy expectations. It teaches you how to cope with different personality types. No matter what you're doing or where you're working, you can't isolate yourself from the crazy. It's a surging sea around you at all times, and and you're able to block more or less of it out depending on how you set up your business, or how if you have any say in what clients your company takes on, that helps. But what I try to look at when I'm having a really hard time with a client, even now, is I try to think, like, okay, all right, like, why are they making me feel this way? How are they feeling? And and how can I make both of us feel better? Like, what miscommunication is happening that's causing this friction between us? Because a lot of the time, it's not even so much like diametric opposition as like you have different words for things, and so they mean one thing, and you mean the same thing, but you're using. So I try to look at all these things as a way to become better at communication, to understand different personality types and the kind of things that can happen there, and also just to be more patient and more in control of myself, and it helps to thicken your skin. So I think the most important thing you can do if you're in what you feel is like a really crappy situation is to think of it like you're in boot camp, and think about all the things you can absorb and learn from it, and then take those things and do them for yourself, or do them for someone who actually appreciates you. Make the most of where you're at, but don't be afraid to get out of a situation that's driving you crazy, because it's seriously not worth it.
That's great. And powerful stuff. I know there's so many people out there who maybe they just feel like they're in over their head and like, well, how did I get myself into this, or just not in a great environment, that this is not where I want to be. And I think I'm sure you can relate to this too, because you have employees and I have employees now, and I know that I worked for someone before that heavily influenced in a different direction how I run my business. And so anytime I'm doing anything managerial, I'm asking myself, what would the last guy that I worked for do? And I'm probably going to do the opposite of that. I think about that all the time. All the time. It impacted me so much that I know that, like, I run my business thinking all the time, how can I not be like that? And then I'll probably have a shot at being a good boss.
Exactly.
Things like that cross your mind.
Absolutely. I think that I try to think about the things that, like, my bosses would say that would make me really insecure, or am I doing something wrong? And so I try to be cognizant of like the things that they would say to me that made me feel that way, and try to either not say those things, or when I do, make sure that I qualify it with like, no, but X, Y, and Z is right, so let's keep moving in that direction. Or just make sure to like straight up apologize if I've like, because a lot of the times, you know, when projects are coming down to the wire and you're like, dude, just do it, okay? Like, I will do this myself, but I would rather you do it, you know. And sometimes you just have to say like, okay, like we're all kind of high strung right now. Like, I will totally make up for this with like a steak lunch later, but for right now, we just have to like kick ass and be patient with each other, because yeah, I mean it happens.
It does. Sometimes that's what it comes down to. So let's talk about Build Create a little bit.
Yeah.
So you left the agency that fell apart, where last time you worked for somebody else, and you said now's the time. I'm gonna do my own thing. I'm gonna start my own company. Walk us through what happened and how your company was structured then, and where you're at now.
Yeah. So when I was first kind of jumping out on my own, so the first company I worked for imploded, and so I first was like, well, if I had the money, I would start my own company, but I don't know. I just don't know if that's what I want to do. So a friend of mine forwarded me a posting for the job that I took. But in the meeting I had with them, I was like, you know, I would love to run my own company someday, but right now that's just not feasible. So I'm, you know, hoping I can kind of take on a more responsible position here, and we all see how that played out. But when we started, it was, you know, I had like a couple of people that came with me when I quit my first, and pretty quickly my friend Eric, who's now my business partner, we've known each other like forever. He's married to my sister. It's like really deeply entangled. And we just got to talking, and he was like, you know, we should probably just do this together. And so we, from day one, have structured things as like a 50-50 partnership. And you know, we have everything set up so that everything divides evenly, and you know, we have like 50-50 decision-making powers, but we all kind of, we stick to what we're best at. So when it comes to like marketing and design and stuff, that's kind of more my wheelhouse, and let him take care of the less fun things like taxes and accounting and project management. So in the beginning, it was just the two of us, and I would go to work and I'd code all day at a job that I loved at first and then grew to hate with a passion. And then come home, you know, eat dinner, get back on my laptop, do work for our new clients, you know, put more money into AdWords, make our website, whatever, get all that stuff pumped up. Eventually, we had a friend of ours come work for us. He helped us with content management and stuff. But in the beginning, it was really pretty much run out of Eric's basement. And then we eventually graduated to a little hallway office in the Tech Brewery off of Jones. Duosec is there, and some other cool people. And pretty much, so that was in 2011. So I quit and started the new job in like November, and then by May 16th was my last day at that job, and officially full-time on my own. And we had set goals, like, okay, the requirements for Ian to quit his job are, you know, this much in the bank, this much in invoices, this much in whatever. Because one of my clients from that first company was a life coach, so she's been we still work with her, but she kind of helped us establish, like, okay, well, here's the things that you need to think about if you're going to do your own thing, which you definitely do need to do, and so set your goals, and I'm going to be here to make sure you meet them. And that was a huge help getting us just jumping off the gate there and get a running start. But then by August, we brought on a developer part-time, because it was to the point where having me do the design and development and all this other stuff was just like way out of hand. And then it wasn't, I think, for like another year or so until we brought someone else, Joe, that first developer we hired, and Alex, who does our some project management and copywriting and stuff, and we have other copywriter contract. So it's it's been like gradual growth. We've tried to really keep everything running smoothly and keep projects flowing, and we still maintained a 50-50 partnership in everything we do. And I've just tried to really like set hard growth targets every year and really make sure we nail those. It's been a rough road sometimes, but ultimately really rewarding. And I mean, I feel like every year I learn like a whole new set of rules about, or not rules, but I have to unlearn a bunch of things that I thought I had learned the previous year and relearn new things for the next year. It's like be a kid all over again.
All right, so I'm just kind of curious. What were your expectations when you got started, and how have those played out over the years?
That's funny. So, like, one of the first questions that our life coach asked us was like, how much money do you want to make a year, guys? Like, like, dream big. Like, what do you want to do? What do you want to go with your lives? Like, what's your dream life? And I was like, I don't know. I guess I want to make like $60K and maybe like take vacation every once in a while or something. And she's like, "You're kidding, right? Like, that is no. You need to think like way bigger." And so, but I mean, really, like the expectations starting out were pretty modest. Like just from there, the idea of not having someone come up behind you while you're working and like question everything you're doing for no reason seemed like a reward enough for our struggles. Like, and it's just really gotten better since then. And every year, really, I feel like our expectations rise as we see like more and more what we're capable of, and new opportunities arise.
So what are your favorite parts about owning your own business or being 50-50 partner in your own business and having that kind of control?
I mean, really, one of the best parts is just the flexibility in terms of, I have 2 kids, so when they're sick, I can really easily be like, oh, I'll stay home, or if it's really snowy outside and I don't feel like driving, I can just work from home and all those things, but at the same time, when I want to live and everything, but really just having the freedom to come and go as I please, having an office downtown that I can call my own is like something that I'm always really proud of. And I don't know, it just really, it was a big jumping off point for me personally in terms of like taking control of my life and really, my life coaches thing is really big, like living life by design, like intentionally saying like, here's what I want to do and where I want to go with my life, and then strategically like figuring out, piece by piece how I'm going to get there. And so really like more so than any of the concrete aspects of business ownership and the freedom that brings, the biggest benefit was really just showing myself that like you can do what you want, you can make it work. There's no limit to what you can do if you go about it in like a thoughtful way. And that was really, I think, the biggest paradigm shift.
So along the lines of being thoughtful and deliberate about your daily work, what does your daily routine or your daily activity look like?
Head into the office, get my Starbucks on the way in. If I'm feeling hungry, I'll get a sandwich. I manage a lot of my my to-dos kind of through email. I've tried a lot of different systems and things to try and find a magic bullet that like fits in with my own laziness and like scatterbrain nature. And I find email just allows me to organize things chronologically really easily. So the first thing I do is go through my email and delete all the spam that I still get and keep not unsubscribing from, because I just instinctively delete it instead of unsubscribing. Once I kind of get that taken care of and everybody's kind of like wanders into the office and we're all there, we usually have some kind of like, hey, what are you doing today? Sort of like shout across, not really shout, but speak at a moderately higher volume across the office to each other. And just I think we all try to get a snapshot of what everyone's working on, just so we know, like, hey, if you need anything, hit me up, or don't bother me because I'm working on something. And then it's usually a mix of design and coding and like account management. I have a handful of clients that I tend to deal with personally. I try to keep that list small because it's better to have someone else managing them than trying to, like, the more people rely on me for direct communication, the worse service they're going to get because I have so much other stuff going on. But I basically get my emails sent out, take care of any design work I have, keep coding, all that good stuff. And let's see, once a month we have our business strategy meetings, longer ones quarterly. But it's really a mix of all those things. Usually my design time tends to be heavily focused towards the beginning of a project. And then as it goes on, I tend to do more and more development as I assist our developer in like the front end development and giving him supplemental designs or going in and polishing up the CSS and whatnot.
Nice. Well, you've mentioned several times about how you deal with employees and how you've had to go through the hiring and firing and all this stuff. What are you looking for when you start looking for an employee?
First and foremost, communication skills far surpass any other qualification that I can see, because how efficiently you're able to work and thereby how efficiently you're able to make money depends on how easily you can communicate with somebody and how easily they're able to understand you. And so, when you get someone whose communication skills are really poor, you wind up in situations where, again, like they feel like maybe you're upset with them, even when you're not, just because they have a hard time communicating to you their own frustration or concerns. It winds up creating more problems than it's worth. So I really look for a solid cover letter. I can usually tell whether someone's going to work out based on their cover letter, because it'll be written in such a way that, I don't know, it just works. From there, qualifications are really important for specific things, but a lot of the time, if they have really strong communication skills, I tend to find that their technical skills follow suit, because they've acquired those communication skills while they've honed their craft.
And you guys are all in office, or do you have any remote employees?
The four of us are in office, and our copywriter is remote. She'll stop by every once in a while for kind of to touch base or just to say hi or whatnot. But right now we're all in office for the most part, though we all occasionally work from home as needed. Sorry.
I'll wait.
Little sound effects.
Yeah. Don't worry. Those are all from Google.
Yeah, I will slowly lose the power of speech. So, fire away.
So I also wanted to ask: are there any like red flags that maybe trigger like you to say, I'm not looking at this one, even if it's probably otherwise a good candidate? Just something that people writing resumes or sending in cover letters might just not be aware of?
Well, I mean, obviously not including a cover letter is the biggest problem. When someone's like, hey, I really like your company, here's my resume, I'm like, hey, I don't care about your resume. Also, not sending a link to your work is also a huge problem. A lot of people will just like send something and it'll have, it'll be a resume put together in Word, there'll be 2 sentences in the email and no link. But that's obviously the worst case scenario. Red flags, for me, are just extensive college work without any practical application. Because obviously, it's not like I'm not like trying to penalize someone for not like having experience, but usually a lot of people through college, if they're self motivated and driven enough, will have taken on a few little freelance things, even if it's for like their uncle or whatever. They've done something to jump in over their head and get burned a little bit. And so if they have, I don't see that drive through any kind of work experience or, again, like having a cover letter where they know how to pitch themselves. It's just a red flag that I know they're not as self-motivated as they could be, and that's just going to be a problem for me because I don't babysit people.
And one more thing on this topic. You mentioned at one point it's probably better to be the jack of all trades rather than a specialist.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you see that line drawn? Where would you say, okay, I need you to have this much specialization and this much awareness of everything else going on?
Right. That is a super delicate balancing act to maintain. So I think that it is a really hard thing to define. I think that I'm going to go back to communication skills. When you see, because someone can be like an amazing programmer and be horrible at communication, and you'd be like, oh, well, they're a programmer, they don't need to be good at communication, they might, they might have an awkward personality, it's fine. But I also know plenty of programmers that are extremely eloquent communicators, and I think that it just belies how much they value broadening themselves as a person. And so even if someone's on their interests in books, film, media, again, how well they talk about things, how well they're able to assimilate information, and kind of one doesn't necessarily possess a great variety of skills, you can usually tell based on their interests in books, film, media, again, how well they talk about things, how well they're able to assimilate information and kind of internalize it. So whether or not they know a lot of things is usually less important than, if I can see that they're engaged and we're having a conversation and we're able to like intelligently bring things back up. It shows me that down the road, if I'm like, hey, can you just Google something and figure it out? They'll be like, oh yeah, and they'll come talk to me when they need help. So I think, the most important skill is to learn. So even if you're not a jack of all trades, if you only do one thing and you're really pigeonholed in there, if I can see that you are someone who has a passion for learning and isn't afraid of saying they don't know, then that's really the only skill that I truly require.
So I've got some questions, a little bit about your clients. Tell us a little bit about the clients that you serve, and basically what's your overall client acquisition strategy been since you started?
Yeah, we have, I would refer to our client acquisition strategy primarily as shamefully inadequate. We do fall into that horrible cycle sometimes. When you get busy and you're like, oh, well, I'll just work on sales later, we're busy right now, and then you're not busy and you're like, oh my God, I'm starving, am I ever going to eat again? I need business. Let's turn the sales funnel back on. And that's been like a perennial problem for us as a small team, because it's easy to get yourself overwhelmed in that way. And we've really been working hard this year especially at refining a better process for it. So we have a few different ways we go about this. A lot of people come to us through the website, some organically, some through our AdWords campaigns. AdWords has been really effective for us in just giving us that little bit of bump we need to get people to click, and we've gotten a surprising number of people that way. And then also people will just randomly call, and you will get the most random phone calls from people with no warning whatsoever, and wind up having them become like awesome relationships that last for years. And you're like, and you just randomly called me, like, okay. And then we have a couple of WordPress-based products that we've developed for it's kind of like a site platform for specific types of organizations, specifically like membership organizations and college organizations. And for those, we do a mix of a little bit of email marketing and cold calling and just direct outreach. Because for them, there's much less of they're not necessarily searching for it, so it's something we try to be more proactive about, and that's something we're really developing more now. But in the beginning, we were relying heavily on referrals, and I definitely talk about this a lot in my WordPress TV talks. Just how you really have to be careful about your referral network, because getting referrals doesn't mean you're getting good referrals, and so you really have to be mindful of the actual value of your clients in a cold, rational, can I pay the bills sort of way, because it's really tempting to be like, well, I have this great referral network of people that refer me tiny projects that I kind of hate working on, but I have all these referrals, and that makes me feel good because people like me, but that ultimately is irrelevant when it comes time to pay rent and payroll. So it's something where you really have to look at a lot of different strategies, and I think that ours has certainly not been the most elegant over the years. And so I would definitely encourage everyone to be more proactive and more structured about it than we've been, because it pays to have a process. It literally does.
It's fascinating and powerful too. I think you're totally right. And that's such great advice. And I haven't heard too many people talk about how important it is. But you've always said things, like bad clients refer more bad clients, and it has been so true. I look back on my business and I can think of times where the phone didn't ring at all, and times where the phone was ringing all the time, but it was a lot of tire kickers and time wasters. And I know which of the two I'd prefer, because one of them I could actually at least work on my own projects and ventures, and the other I'm spinning tires and getting nowhere with a lot of problematic inquiries. So you gotta be mindful of what your funnel is and where your sources are for a new business. Just the phone ringing isn't necessarily a good thing.
Exactly. That's why we stopped answering our phone as often unless we know who it is. And it really saved a lot of time, because it takes a lot of time to answer the phone every single time it rings. So we kind of changed how our caller ID works, so we can better pinpoint who's calling us and why, and make sure that we make the most efficient use of our time in that way, because it's a value to our customers and to any potential customers. It's our voicemail just says we're busy helping our clients, and we'll get back to you. And we get back to people super promptly, and keep those lines of communication really open, but we're also not afraid to be like, okay, you're going to have to wait a minute because we got stuff to do, and when it's your turn, we're doing your stuff, you're going to appreciate that, and they do.
So I know you're probably going to have, you could probably talk for a whole episode about this. Well, shouldn't take, that could be taken the wrong way, but we love, no, the question is, nightmare projects from the past.
Yes.
The project's gone wrong. We always love to talk about this. I think there's so many lessons to be learned. Most of the lessons that I talk about in my talks and whenever I'm coaching people is, this is a lesson I learned because I had a project that went wrong, and here's what you got to do to correct that. And you've talked a lot about this as well. So talk about some lessons that you've learned from projects that went wrong, or even walk us through a good story of something that just seemed nothing and just burned, crashed and burned.
Okay, sorry, adjusting. My legs are falling asleep. Yeah, gosh, it's like there are so many.
I didn't want to say that,
but no, there's usually I feel like there's always one a year that you really learn something from, where you're like, okay, yeah, that taught me a lesson. there are a bunch of other projects that come along where you're like, okay, yeah, I had that problem last year. I'm not doing that again now. But there's always the one that slips through where you're like, oh no, I know all the tricks and you won't fool me this time. And they're like, ah, but we did. And you're like, ah. But, yeah, I think. Okay, yes, I have a really recent one with that. A lot of the stories, I think, and a lot of the experiences really come down to learning to just be a little bit more assertive and just saying no, like really firmly. Like no matter how many times I learn that I need to say no more often, and I start saying no more often, it's like, no, you need to like say it even more often and more forcefully. So I had this project, and it was the classic, okay, here's the business owner, and here's the guy who's going to be doing like creative direction on the project. And you're like, okay, well, I am been told, and I'm going to assume that Mr. Creative Director guy has, his mouth to the ear of God over here, and knows everything, and it's just, there's no point trying to. I don't want to like overstep my bounds and jump over him to the owner, right? So, weeks go by, the project is just spinning its wheels, we can't get any concrete approval or concrete feedback on anything. It's an absolute train wreck. And finally, the owner's like, well, why didn't you just jump over his head and tell me that he was screwing everything up? It's like, well, I kind of thought the whole point was that he was in charge. So what I learned was that sometimes you just got to jump over that guy's head and take his legs out on the way, because when you know something's wrong, and even when like you feel kind of like you're being a little bit petulant, like maybe even if you're being a little bit petulant, maybe you're still right though, and maybe you really need that guy needs to be taken down a peg, and you really do need to go to another higher person in charge and just verify with them, is this what you want? Because in my professional opinion, this is not going well, and we need to evaluate or do whatever. In the end, the owner wound up stepping in, and we kind of wound up going back to the original stuff we had proposed. And while it was immensely stressful, and I probably lost some hair over it, the story has a happy ending. But yeah, it was really just one of those things where it was like, okay, we had learned to become more assertive over the years, but apparently not enough. And it's really just like you can't sell yourself short as a professional. You can't, you really need to trust your own instincts. And if something's really wrong and it's really upsetting you, you have to set your upsetness aside and approach it tactfully and professionally and responsibly. But the responsible thing to do is to go another level up in authority if you can, and really make sure that the person who's cutting the checks knows what's going on, and that it's against your advice and what you think is best. Otherwise, you're doing them and yourself a disservice. So that was a big lesson that I learned, and I'm happy to become more pig-headed, despite my attempts not to. Apparently, that was the wrong decision. So.
No, I think you're spot on, and like I couldn't agree more. I could echo you so much with that advice. Like I'm always telling, because this is a lesson that we learned that it was hard to learn. There were a lot of our best sources for business was people advocating for us and referring us or bringing us in. People who had related businesses, and they say, hey, you could help my client too. And there were all these situations that we found ourselves in where we trusted someone to be our advocate.
Yeah.
And that didn't work. We have to be our own advocate at all times and not trust someone else to fight our battles. Everybody out there is fighting their own battles every day. They're trying to keep their job and keep on top of things. They're not going to fight our battles for us. And so we've really learned to work to keep in constant communication with the actual decision makers, the people who actually truly matter. And just because so-and-so project manager or marketing person is telling us that they love it and they're thrilled, that doesn't mean Jack Diddley when it comes to the project because they're not the one who signs off on it. So just like reminding ourselves of that reality all the time and not trusting anybody to just go to the powers that be and speak for us has really helped us keep things running smooth.
Yeah, that's why we used to have some relationships where we worked with people who didn't do web development to do like web development and design for their clients, but they'd still want to basically like be a filter between us and their end client. And as much as I understand and respect that desire, ultimately it's a recipe for disaster because they don't know how to sell or manage that kind of project. So don't be afraid to put your foot down and say, no, we need to have direct access to the client, or it's going to be bad for everyone.
This kind of brings me into another topic I wanted to ask you about, and that is, we don't have a whole lot of time left, so I'll just throw it all out there at once. Your thoughts on managing projects?
Yeah.
Tools you use, how you handle scope creep, and how you address that with the client or whatnot.
Yeah. So scope creep is one of those things that I'm really happy to say for the first time ever, I really feel like scope creep is starting to get into my rearview mirror. I think that one of the best ways to combat scope creep, greedy, and just be like, you know what, I like money a lot. I like money more than I like not feeling awkward telling you that I want more money. Like I went on vacation to Scotland, which was awesome, and in like months leading up to this, whenever I get into some kind of scope creepy situation, I'm like, would I rather make this conversation a little bit awkward, or would I rather have an awesome vacation? But like really, you need to think about that because you're taking money out of your own pocket, depending on. Or if you're doing it flat rate, or if you're doing it hourly, then you're potentially pissing them off. But I mean, honestly, if you frame the conversation correctly from the beginning, it's really easy to just be like, no, that's not going to work, or I would love to do that for you, and it's going to cost more money. So I think combating scope creep is tied up in a lot of other project management skills, like saying no and properly setting expectations. And maintaining expectations, because usually you set expectations that are pretty reasonable, but then when everybody gets excited, you then kind of like screw up the foundation you laid, and so you go from like doing the basement and the first floor, and suddenly you're like, and we'll skip to the penthouse and maybe work our way like down, meet in the middle. No, you got to keep it steadily moving up. Project management tools wise, again, it's one of those things where I've tried a lot of different tools over the years for managing various aspects of it, and I honestly have to say, for me, email still just maintains the best living record that I can for communication. But another huge thing that we use is Google Docs, because we can have all of our notes for every project, for every meeting stored, and so we have like a such and such client notes log, and then it's like date, and then usually a bunch of bullet points of whatever that meeting was, and then we can go back through and like scratch off the notes as we complete them, or we use that for like, oh, they just in this meeting they requested this functionality, here's the scope we outlined for that in the meeting, and it keeps everything globally accessible, securely stored, because everybody has to use two-factor in the company, and we use our spreadsheets as well for keeping track of information and deadlines and things, what URLs are used for things, for the dev sites, what the IP is for the server they're on, all that kind of stuff. So it makes a really nice directory of information we can use. Because for us, we're so small, a lot of project management tools are just a little bit more than we need. Can all access and work from. So that's pretty much what we do. Another big thing, I'll try to keep this short because I know we're running out of time and I ramble like no other, is I try to focus conversations on next steps. So I try to celebrate the victories when we have them, and then immediately look at, okay, well, here's the next step we can do towards completing this project or whatever. And that way, in every email, I can always go back and see like what the timeline is, and it keeps people focused on the forward momentum of the project, and that really helps a lot. The other thing that really helps is to hire a project manager so that you don't have to do it. That's probably my favorite one, because if you're running a small shop, you think that, oh, I can do everything. I can design, code, and manage projects. You can't. It'll be a disaster. So bill for your project management time, and then hire someone to share the load and start offloading communication to them, and it will make your life that much better.
Okay, I got one more quick one, and I don't think you're going to make it a quick one, but I'm going to ask it anyways. I've heard you talk a lot about having a mentor, and what would you expect the responsibilities, both for you, if you're a young person getting into it, and a mentor, and how would you expect that relationship to play out?
Yeah, I think that I think everyone should have a mentor of some form. It doesn't need to be like a super formal thing. It doesn't need to be like a business coach or anything. I was lucky enough to have that, to have Jennifer as a client, so I kind of like cheated my way into that. But just having someone who has, run the rodeo more times than you to point you in the right direction and keep selling yourself short. The most important thing is that it be regular. So you set up some kind of rules for your relationship. Like, okay, we're going to meet or talk every week or every month or whatever, quarterly, whatever timeline makes sense, and set goals every time to follow up on so that you're held accountable, so that every meeting there's something that you need to have accomplished. I mean, that I can leave it at that, actually. That's pretty much it. It's really just have someone that you can have those regular meetings with and will hold you accountable to the goals you set, and will keep you from selling yourself short or getting yourself in over your head.
So it is acceptable for my mentor Kyle here to downgrade, to belittle me and call me a worthless pile of doo-doo?
Well, I mean, it depends. Do you have a safe word or anything?
It depends whether it's true or not.
Right. Yeah, I think that though Jennifer doesn't necessarily say those things, I walk away sometimes feeling just as if she had, because I'm like, damn, why didn't I think of that? Or why did I sell myself short in this way or whatever? But relentless positivity, yes, relentless positivity is a requirement. So shame on you.
Jeez. Okay, I see how it is. All right, so we're getting down to the end of this hour, and it's been amazing. Really glad we've had this opportunity to chit-chat and learn more about you. So a couple wrap-up questions here. Looking ahead at your, before I ask that, how was this trip? How was Scotland, man? I mean, you missed WordCamp Ann Arbor 2015 for it, but I don't blame you. Tell us about the trip.
Yeah, I missed Ann Arbor, New York, and Chicago. Really, really upset about that, but not that upset. It was brilliant. I turned off all my email. I set my out of office, and I emailed those people that relied on me specifically. I was like, I'm seriously not checking my email. I'll seriously not email you this week, so you really need to email someone else, because it's not going to happen. Not going to happen. And they're all like, oh, show us pictures when you get back. And I'm like, I will. It'll be awesome. So I'm really lucky. I have some really great people, really great clients that are really supportive. And then my friends' parents that I was staying with, they didn't let me lift a finger the entire week. They were like, we're going to cook all your meals and show you places to go. So it was really relaxing. It was really, really lucky. Really, really lucky. And then I came back and got really sick, and so did everyone else I know. So,
jeez. Well, I'm glad it was a good trip. So, looking ahead, looking at your calendar, what's in the future that you might be attending where someone might bump into Mr. Ian Wilson in person and get to shake your hand and thank you for appearing on episode 79?
Let's see. I'm going to be giving a talk at Washtenaw Community College on Thursday for their user experience group at 3:30. That's pretty immediate. I don't. The next public appearance I'll be making probably won't be until the spring WordCamp season kicks off, and then I just try to hit as many as I can in the Midwest, workload allowing. But hopefully I'll be able to hit up Ann Arbor. Columbus was great. I'd love to do that again. Chicago, Grand Rapids, and I'm gonna try really hard to be in New York next year too.
Awesome. I hope to bump into you at a lot of those. So, I had plenty of them myself. So, who do you recommend as guests for future episodes of the show?
Oh gosh. Oh God. Hang on. What's his?
Oh gosh.
I know. Tom McFarlane has been like really helpful for me. Of all the people I follow on Twitter, no offense to everyone else I follow on Twitter, but like I randomly send on to Twitter and I'll find something helpful, and like within the last 3 tweets he's tweeted, and I just think he has a lot of really good positive energy and has just a lot of good things to say about the WordPress community and business in general. I don't know if has he been on here already or no?
No, but it will happen.
You should get him because he's good people for sure.
That's completely true. I'm a big fan of pretty much everything that he does and says as well.
Yeah.
Awesome. Good suggestion. So, is there anything else that you'd like to add, Ian, that you want to share with any people? Any things we forgot to ask, or things that you just want everyone to know about?
Everyone to know about. God, I mean, there's so many things, but the most important thing that I would really like to just put out there for people is to take the mentorship thing really seriously. Because I know I didn't for years, and it was kind of like, oh, you need a mentor, you just can't figure it out on your own. Like, it's kind of like once you get out of school, you kind of feel like maybe you're done having a direct teacher over you, like holding you accountable for stuff. But it's really not like that, and I mean, it's just immensely helpful, and I hope that everyone will kind of keep an open mind, and a lot of the people that you follow on Twitter that are really awesome people that you enjoy following are the kind of people that you could totally reach out to and be like, hey, could we have a regular conversation like once a month? Could I just borrow a half hour of your time every month just to like talk about what's going on with my business or my career or whatever? I think more people than you would think are totally open to that, and you should be too, because that's like the easiest way to acquire knowledge is just like have someone in your same position like feeding you back their own experiences.
That's powerful stuff. Thanks for sharing that, Ian.
Oh, thank you.
So that about wraps up our show. The only final thing I wanna share is a big happy birthday to a good friend of the show, Mr. Adam Silver. He turned 31 today, so everybody should wish him happy birthday, and hope he has a good night. He's going out to dinner with his family. So that's about it for us. That wraps up episode 79. Thanks to Ian Wilson. I encourage everybody to go to buildcreate.com and learn about his business, and say hi to him next time you encounter him in person, and say episode 79 was one of the best episodes of the Roundtable that you ever saw. All right.
Thanks for joining us, Ian. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure. Anyone who wants can hit me up on Twitter at BuildCreate or at Wilsonography. It's in my little thingy down here. Anytime, any question, I'm around somewhere watching.
All right.
Thanks, Ian.
Good night.